Composing Gloves here, and today we are taking a look at Bionic Plucks and Mallets. Last night we did a live stream. It was a first look, got familiar with all the features of the library. It's not a super big library, and it has a really specific purpose. So it's one of those things you can pick up and learn and start using right away. So if you're curious about a really more in-depth look, you can go ahead and check out that live stream. We dig through all the different samples, all the different options we have, the different menus and ways of controlling things. So whole bunch of things, and we make this track in the process. So let's start off with a musical example, and then we'll dive into the library itself, things I like about it, things I don't like about it, or things that could be improved. So let's start with that. So I'm going to start right here because these patterns are pretty much the exact same thing. This is what we came up with. There's 3 layers going on. Yeah, so let's dive into it. So there's 3 layers. This is our main layer, and we've got 2 sides, but I'm using a preset here. So they come with a bunch of presets. The preset browser's right here. You can go in and try out a whole bunch of different presets. We'll look at a few of them here, but this is the main thing. And then you're able to morph between a transient set of samples and a sustained set of samples with this transient tail. There are a few more controls here when it comes to crossover and fade length that can have a huge impact on how plucky a sample is, and something we learned last night. And then you've got your effects. So pretty standard stuff here. So this is just doing the MIDI for the main line. Let's take a quick look at that. So this is what the MIDI looks like. Nothing crazy, kind of what you would expect. No need for key switches or anything. Let's go ahead and let's just turn off a few of these things and just take a look at this itself. What you would expect. All right, so moving over to the next lines, a lot of these things really don't stand out to me as things that you would have as, solo elements. They would be things that are layer elements, things that would come in or add a nice little texture in a couple places, which is how I treated it here. So for example, the second one is extremely plucky. This next instance, it is the tap bass with overtones, and it is just super, super, super sharp. In fact, let's turn off this first one so you can hear it. So these are the ones that are doing like these sort of extra little emphasis on those notes. Creates a really nice groove. The tops of notes or the front of notes stands out a lot more. And then down here we have this additional texture. This is the 3rd layer. So this is one way of using the library and the way I opted to use it here. We've got another quick example. All right, so here's another example where I use a lot more of the bell textures available in the library. Again, went through, varied up a lot more of my sample choice this time. And this is what it sounds like. We're just going to play through a portion of it. Yeah, so pretty nice thing right there. I went down this weird chord progression route I wasn't digging. Okay, so let's dive into the library a little bit, and to show you sort of what the cool thing about this library is. One of the really neat things is you can morph between the transient and the tail with just this knob. So you can just vary this and you can get a lot of cool variation out. So for example, this beginning patch, I have this being automated. And there's a bunch of other elements that actually come in. So maybe let's solo this so you can hear just what this is doing. So it's not very bell-like. Yeah, and you see it's 100% tail now. So that's something that's really, really nice with some of these patches. They heavily favor moves like that. And besides this main button here, you can actually come into this fader mixer tab area, and you could choose the crossover and X fade length, crossover fade length, you know what I mean. And this can have a massive impact on how transient the samples are. So let's dive into an open contact. First things first, this is a third-party instrument. So it's not going to appear with the add library tab or anything like that. You have to go to files and you have to find where it installed it. They use Pulse to download and install it, which is a very pleasant experience. Super straightforward. Really happy they used Pulse. And so you find the instrument file, the NKI, and just load it up. So that's how you load it. I always get asked, like, how do I add this thing? And that's how you do it. So for this particular case, the interface itself, they chose to go with the bigger screen size, which I think is a smart move here, because as soon as you load an instrument that has the bigger screen size being used, it expands contact, even if the other interfaces are small. Like you saw earlier over here, I had instruments that weren't that big. I honestly prefer the smaller ones because I think there's a certain elegance about them being small and not taking up so much space. But most instruments these days are doing this, so you might as well have that. It'd be cool if there was like an option for a smaller interface. That'd be kind of neat. But that aside, interface itself, great interface. Looks really nice and pleasant. There's a couple really elegant menus to go through. And you've got your sort of your sample selection area. And when you want to change a sample, you can click and you can have access to all your samples. So there's a transient side and a tail side. And on the transient side, you can morph between A and B. So let's go 100% transient here for a second. Down here with this knob. And so you can hear right now super plucky. And for that, you might be going, why is it so dang plucky? Go to the volume page and consider moving the crossover point. You'll hear a lot more. Same with the X fade. So just mess with those. They all start with a slight offset, which is an interesting decision. I don't know why they chose to do that. But yeah, if you go through them, pretty much everything has some sort of an offset at the beginning. Because that to me is a little bit more like, you know, you get a little bit more of that pluck sound. Okay, so coming through here, you're able to choose it. You could, you know, a bunch of sample stuff. You can come in and alter things. You can, you know, alter the sample you pick. If you want to turn one off, you can. And that's just the transient side. You can morph to the tail side, which is going to have longer samples. Let's look at C. And then you can go ahead, morph between the two samples. Maybe we do that on this side too. And then we can like... So we can choose something in the middle. Major criticism just off the bat is it's all just way too soft. It starts so dang soft. And so I always end up, you know, pumping it way up. Because you kind of have to in order for it to be usable. They've got this beautiful volume control right here. Looks so good. I like their graphics, like the moving of fader. The faders are really creative. That's really cool. I wish the samples just started off louder. So I guess not a major criticism, but it's just something I wish. It would add meaning to this volume knob here too. So coming in, we've got our effects. So after you come in, you know, you do the stuff with your sample. You can add some filters, various, you know, sample behavior, and then you can go to the effects tab. And you've got your basic standard effects here, reverb, delay, saturation, all that kind of stuff. So other than that, looks pretty nice. You can randomize these samples to get some pretty awesome variation pretty fast. Let's go to this randomize the tail as well. See, for this one, probably favor transient a lot more. So they've got a lot of good variation in here. Some Glock stuff, all kinds of cool things. So the sample content itself, there's not a ton. I kind of expected there to be a lot more, but there's what is here is like a good choice. It is nice that it's all on one page. And they made a good selection of samples. So more isn't always better. Like there's good variation here. It would be nice to see variations on the individual, like multi-sample kind of stuff, where there's like multiple samples that it could pick from. That would be kind of cool of each category, just to add a little bit more variation to it. They have this humanize option here. So if we turn humanize all the way up, and let's just go 100% to A so we can hear it. If we turn humanize down, so it varies the sample up when you play it. It sounds kind of like a vibrato. Let's get a different sample here just to show you what it sounds like on a more plucky sound. So low humanize, high humanize. So this sounds kind of like a vibrato. So it's not kind of the variation I'd be looking for. I'd be looking for something that does, multi-sample kind of stuff. So I think that could definitely take the library up a level. But besides that, yeah, this is nice. It's nice starting content. Like they've got a wide selection of things to work with here. So pros of the library, it's very easy to use. The interface is intuitive and it looks really nice. I really like the faders, and samples sound good. And they do pretty much exactly what you expect them to do. It's super intuitive, and having a knob like this to compose with is extremely intuitive. Cons of the library, these are all kind of small things. First, the volume. I wish the volume was higher. Second, I think there should be like some multi-sample content is a big missed opportunity here when it comes to some variation on this, or at least a different humanized feature that maybe varies offset instead of by some small amount instead of the pitch. Another small thing, when you browse samples, they give you this super nice menu. Like, look at this, is like sexy, man. But when you go over to the preset browser, which is arguably you're going to spend more time digging through these, you're not, this is like the regular contact one. So it's like, it's just weird to me that they didn't have like a nice graphic for this one. Another small con here is that the MIDI stuff isn't already set up for you. So let me show you. First, I'll show you how you have to do it for this library, and then I'll show you how it's kind of supposed to be. So when you move a knob or control or something, let's say I want to automate this, you can't just right click it and create an automation clip. You can learn the automation, but that's like baked in. If we go to the browser and go to the automation page, nothing is connected here. So that's kind of a problem. So if we drag it to it and connect it, now let's say I want to automate this, I could go to browse parameters. It is going to vary for your DAW, but in FL. And now if you look here, it's been connected. So if I want to automate this, I can just automate this control, and I can create an automation clip for this and, move it around. Where I couldn't do that, for example, say I want to automate this thing. Well, I can't do it, because let's go to browse parameters. It'll move to it if I've got it, but it's not there. Nothing here is connected to this. If I go and drag the first one to it though, and now if I move this, it'll control that thing. Let's say I want to do this one instead. You see how it highlights that? And if I go to this one, it'll highlight that instead. So normally all this stuff's pre-connected, so you can just do that. But here it's not a super like big deal, because it's pretty easy to do. But I would definitely consider this a advanced user thing. And I don't think this library was made necessarily for the advanced user. So you definitely, just so you're aware, that's how it works. The way it's supposed to be, if you go to let's just go to some contact library that's like native instrument stuff. We'll load up an instance of the Maverick. Oh, it's going to load. There it goes. And if we come to the automation, you see all this stuff that just appeared here. And if I move this, let's go to browse parameters. I can move my control and it'll automatically go to it. And this is fantastic too, because I have a custom keyboard shortcut that if this is pre-set up, I don't even have to do this whole process. I can just hit Shift A and it creates it. Let's say I want to automate this one, Shift A, boom, there it is. Space amount, Maverick. So the fact that it's not pre-set up, it's just, I think, maybe an oversight on their part. But one that you should definitely be aware of, especially if you want to take advantage of the cool transient tail knob dynamically like I did. And in the live stream, you see me set this up and come to this realization that it's not connected. Yeah, so I want to end on a positive note here with the library itself, and that its strength is it's extremely quick to use. It's super easy to just get rolling and immediately begin, doing things. The automation is the only bit that I think kind of slows it down. Other than that, you quickly can, find cool samples, come into the effects, and a lot of times I like to just turn effects off anyways and go into the DAW and use what's available there. Because the contact stuff, it could be okay, but if you've got, nice reverbs and things, why not use the nice reverbs? This is like really here for convenience. So the sound sources themselves, though, I think are well chosen and they suit well to a fast workflow and one that sort of focuses more on music and less on details. If you have any questions about this, feel free to let me know, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.